Hello and welcome to the Multicultural AFL Football TV show. Round 14 was quite interesting. West Coast crushed Essendon, Sydney did a number on the Hawks, Melbourne surprised by beating Freo at the G, Brisbane decimated the Saints, while the hoodoo of losing after a bye continued to haunt the Cats. And the Magpies won a mediocre game against the Dogs, despite their star player Jaden Stevenson out of 22 weeks, 12 suspended for gambling on calling good games. All this and more on our show tonight. I'm Vanessa Gatica and I'm joined by my two co-panelists, Javier Sincan and Gabriel De Angelo. Hello guys.
Hello Vanessa.
Vanessa, Javier.
Round 14 kicked off last Thursday night from Optus Stadium in Perth, with the Eagles comprehensively beating Essendon. On Friday, Sydney beat the Hawks at the SCG. Javier, what did you make of that?
Well, I believe there are some loopholes in West Coast team, which a team can ponder on. The way Essendon played, especially the first quarter. But the other team, whoever wants to win them, need to do it consistently for the 4 quarters, not just 1 quarter. And West Coast, they might be able to fill those voids in with Nick Natnoe probably coming back as well. And the way they've done that in that game, because they got their act together after a good show by Essendon. I think huge credit to them. And they were meant to win over there anyway. But the way they sort of came back and the way Essendon sort of started, it looked like they needed to do some work and they did good teams and they bounced back. So I believe West Coast is a very strong team, but in the coming week there is a chance that they could be beaten. And Hawks, I believe, I think they're a bit of a downfall at the moment. But then again, there's not a 1 week which goes without Rempe doing a brain fight. Again, say Callum Sinclair was with him this time as well before his concussion, and they let the goal happen. And other than that, Sydney were fantastic that night. Even Sinclair, before his concussion, he played very good. And I believe Buddies would be missed in the coming games, though. I believe he might have to miss a couple because of his hamstring. But still, without their star players who were playing good on that day, and Buddy Franklin out, they did win. That was fantastic.
Yeah, I just want to ask you about Hawthorn, because for me, look, Hawthorn aren't out of finals contention yet. I mean, they still have a mathematical chance, and Alistair Clarkson's a great coach. But when it comes to Hawthorn, from my point of view, it seems like they've lost their way a little bit. They're not as disciplined, they're not as sharp as they were in the previous years. And this idiotic pinching of Horacio Fantasia and all this sort of stuff, all this this wouldn't have happened a few years back when they had that premiership winning, that three-peat winning team of Hawthorn. It just seems like Hawthorn have lost their way a little bit. Do you think that maybe Alistair Clarkson, maybe he's sort of losing focus a little bit, or
look, could
what
be
do you
few
think?
factors. Could be few factors. There's a talk going on that Alistair Clarkson might go to Carlton. If there's a little bit of hint of truth in that, then that could be one factor. Not that I'm doubting any integrity from Alistair Clarkson. He's a great coach and he got his mind and heart with the Hawks. But few things we've noticed this year. Wingard coming in, and then we had that spray on field. Ruffhead goes out, plays VFL and this and that. So all these things, and then you hit right on the spot that Ben started. What he did was the pinching and stuff. Stupid. So that means that if your captain is doing that, that means definitely there's something wrong somewhere. And there's something as a group which is not. They're probably not gelling together well, or maybe there's something in the group. So that could be one of the reasons, though.
Yeah, there generally seems to be this lack of focus and lack of discipline in Hawthorn. But if Alistair Clarkson does go, well, he is a career coach. If he wants to go, let him go. But I don't know, Hawthorn have just really lost their way badly this season. I've been really disappointed about them. I thought they were going to be a lot better, but we'll see what happens. I mean, it's not over yet, so we'll see what happens.
Definitely, you can't rule them out.
Exactly. Saturday at Marvel, the Brisbane Lions crushed the Saints by 56 points. Melbourne got up to beat Fremantle by 14. Geelong went down to Port Adelaide by 11, but the Cats, coming off a bye, hoodoo continues, with 8 losses out of 9 return games over the recent years. Gabriel.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously Geelong have that little bit of a problem, but I think St Kilda at the moment have a much larger problem.
Bigger problems, yeah.
Well, congratulations to Melbourne for beating Fremantle. They've been under a lot of pressure. Simon Goodwin's been on a lot of pressure, so congratulations to Melbourne for beating a very good Fremantle side. But St Kilda, I mean, my God, they were pathetic. They were really, really bad against Brisbane. Look, I thought Brisbane were going to win that game, but I thought maybe St Kilda were going to be a little bit more competitive. I thought, maybe 18-point loss. But that was pathetic. That was really, really bad from St Kilda. They were 80 points down to a team that was probably almost like, they were lower level than St Kilda last season. And the year before that, even worse. So Brisbane have gone from like here to like well and truly over St Kilda. So what is going on with St Kilda? They're developing badly. Their game style is atrocious. There's a lot of questions that St Kilda, the football club, have to ask about where they're going as a club under Alan Richardson. Because Alan Richardson has been in charge for 6 years and they haven't been in the finals. Not one time have I, as a St Kilda supporter, have been really sort of like positive about having Alan Richardson as a coach. There was that game that St Kilda beat Richmond a few seasons back where they just obliterated Richmond. And yet, when you look at the way one club went to the other, Richmond went on to win the premiership and St Kilda went on to go downhill. So what is going on? So like there's been a lot of criticism, there's been a lot of speculation about Alan Richardson's future, not just primarily because of that loss, but many other losses. St Kilda can only beat teams that are below them. They haven't beat anybody in the top 8. So yeah, there's a lot of problems at St Kilda at the moment, but who knows what can happen.
Who knows?
Yeah, no, that's a fair point. But although if we just say this season, it's not that bad for Alan Richardson. With that many injuries, he's done okay.
It's not that good either.
Yeah, it's not that good either. But what I'm saying is, if you mentioned like few years, that's been happening. So that probably puts him at a spot that he should have sort of done better with his team, and then his performance hasn't been that good.
Well, the St Kilda Football Club have to ask themselves, with Alan Richardson as coach, if they have him for another year, what difference would that make compared to the other 6 years he's been in charge? Would they magically come to life? Like, I can understand that sort of Bomber Thompson at Geelong sort of mentality where they just gave him time, gave him space to sort of create the team. But you can see that team was building and then they made it and they won their premiership. But with St Kilda, there's just nothing there. There's just no life to them. And he's going to be the second longest running coach at St Kilda, and he has not been into the finals, whereas other coaches have, and they've been given pretty much unceremonious sackings. Ken Sheldon for one, Stan Alves, Grant Thomas, Ross Lyon left. So there's a lot that St Kilda have to ask themselves. Is Alan Richardson the right man to take him to another premiership? If the answer is no, then...
Yeah, and the other games, I believe we've been talking about that Tom McDonald is having a bad time at the moment. The day he has a good game, Melbourne wins. So so there's nothing too wrong with Melbourne, but they still need to gel together. And with Geelong, one thing came up that they need to work on their ruck issue, because that's what sort of put them down against Port Adelaide.
Thank you, guys. Our live broadcast game in Mandarin last Sunday was the Western Bulldogs and the Magpies. A touch boring. In fact, it took about 22 minutes for a goal to be scored in the second quarter. Gabriel, you were there.
Yes, I was. I was there. and I don't know, I don't agree with it being a touch boring. I thought it was not too bad. It was a very grinding game, and the Bulldogs, they've only got themselves to blame because they missed so many opportunities to win that game. It was amazing how many behinds. And Collingwood only scored 4 behinds. Only 4. Whereas the Bulldogs scored, I can't remember how many, but it was over 10. So, if you score, you win games. And that's what that's been the big problem of the Bulldogs this season, where they've been very inaccurate in front of goals. They really need to fix that, because they had Collingwood. They had them for a good period of the game, and the Bulldogs could have won that game. There's also a little bit of, like with the Bulldogs, you'll know better than I, because you've been a big Bulldogs fan, but their forward line, it's just so frustrating how they're right in front of goal and they play too much with it. It's just have a shot.
Yeah, it was like someone mentioning to me that I can't believe that Bontempelli can kick from that far to right to the chest of someone when he's giving a mark. But when it comes to goal, they're missing right from the front.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we...
Lloyd in particular?
Yeah, Lloyd as well. And then the one thing which Suckling did, there was like, we all know that it's 30 seconds. Yeah, he's playing for that line. Umpire kept him saying, it's 15 seconds now, 10 seconds. And then when he realized that he's got the ball on the floor, then he picks it up and just shanks it. Like, I mean, serious?
Yeah.
You're playing, for God's sake, you're playing an AFL game and there's big stakes on, and you need to literally do better than that. Yeah. So that was pretty bad. And the other thing which I sort of didn't like either, I think that's an indication that Grundy is going to Adelaide. He did like 25 odd disposals, 2 goals, and a lot of hit-outs, and still Buckley says that it wasn't that good. Look, I don't know what
I'll take it.
but I'm not sure. He might have like high standards, but that was a bit shocking. So that's probably the couple of takes that I got from that game. Yeah. And as you said, Bulldogs should have won that one. Yeah. But
we will be back after this break to discuss the state of the AFL League ladder and our previews and tips for this week. So stay tuned. Welcome back to the Multicultural AFL Footy Show. Guys, the AFL ladder is starting to take shape with Geelong still on top, followed by Collingwood a game behind, Melbourne, Gold Coast and the Blues still on the bottom. What are your thoughts, Javier?
Well, I would say I think it has sort of taken its shape. I don't think there would be many changes that's coming up for me. If I look at the top 8 at the moment, I believe that's a top 8 we're going to get. The teams who are just sort of outside, Richmond and Essendon, Richmond, like I think they can bounce back, but a lot will depend on the injuries and how many players they get back.
Yeah.
They've got a system which is working for them. Even people are coming in and getting into that system. They're still winning the games. That could work too, but without those good players that are staying out at the moment, I think it will be hard for them. And Essendon, I mean, they're doing all right with the teams. If they are below and maybe at par with them, that's where they're performing well. But any team, if it's above them, I don't think they're playing that good of footy. And even if they manage to get to top 8, I don't think they will be deserving at this stage the way they're playing. And I think Jack Stringer is out. I think that's going to add to their woes. And other than that, I believe Hawthorn and Sydney Swans are like sort of surprise packages. They can sort of sneak in somehow. But the way, as we discussed before, there's very grim chances though. But I believe Carlton should have done better. They're bottom of the ladder, but really they didn't really deserve that place. I would say with the close matches, and maybe because they lost Doherty at the start, so maybe that could be that factor which kept them down aside. But then again, I don't see any changes at the bottom. Bulldogs, if they keep on playing the way they are playing, they might go a bit further down. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I think the ladders is pretty much shaped up now.
Yeah, I can see that. Like, I'm not 100% convinced with Port Adelaide. Like, I know they're sort of flying under the radar a little bit, but I'm not. I don't know. Port Adelaide could come out of the top 8, and Brisbane Lions, they have to be careful. I like Brisbane Lions. I hope they make it into the top 8, but they have to be very careful because they could slip out as well. I think Fremantle might solidify a place in the top 8. They've taken everybody by surprise. They've won a lot of very good games away from home. So I think Fremantle, they're the real deal. Richmond, you're right in saying that there's a lot of players out coming back in. They could surprise. They might be one of these teams that could just slip into the top 8. Essendon, like you said, they need to beat teams that are in the top 8. They need to beat teams that are better than them, so to speak, to really have a push into the top 8. I think between Hawthorn and Sydney, being those teams that could cause a surprise, I'm not 100% sure about Hawthorn. They've been very disappointing this season. I think that Sydney, they could climb up. They've done it before where they've just been below and nobody's really taken much notice, but they have this ability to just surprise and just climb and climb and climb and climb and just get into the top 8 out of nowhere. So I think they're a team that could really surprise, but St Kilda, North Melbourne, Bulldogs, Melbourne, they can just plan for next season, really. But you're right in saying that I think the top 4, the top 6 really, I think they're pretty much firm.
Yeah. I believe. Yeah, you're right on Port Adelaide. They have their moments. That's a place to be taken anyway. But other than that, I think Fremantle are picking at the right time. So
Yeah.
I don't think I can't rule them out. And Bismarck Lions, I think they would make it.
And Walters.
They've got like 5 more games or something like that, which they got at home. I think they will be able to nail that, and then they will stay in the top 8. And Geelong Cats, Collingwood, GWS Giants, West Coast Eagles, I think they're just still going to be top 4. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Very interesting. We will be back after the short break with round 15 previews and tips coming up, so stick around. Welcome back. Round 15 back with 9 games for the weekend. However, the bye fallout may last another week as teams coming off a bye meet teams that have played last week. Tonight, Essendon are playing the Giants at Marvel Stadium, and tomorrow, Friday Night Football, the Cats host the Adelaide Crows in Geelong. Your thoughts on these 2 games?
Well, I believe with the Essendon and Giants, it's going to be at Marvel. Essendon should win this game. However, the way Giants are playing, I believe it will be an upset if Essendon wins. So it's really a tricky one for us at this stage. This is what I assume. Stringer looks like he might be out again, and that will add to their forward woes at the moment. Not sure who's going to take his place, and whoever comes in would be able to gel into that team and will be there at that position doing well. I doubt that. And I think Giants, they really want to make a point this year. So I believe they're going to come in hard. And whether Essendon will be able to withstand that, I doubt that. So I believe I will give Giants an edge over Essendon, although it's a marvel and Essendon should win. And Cats versus Crows, I believe Cats, they'll be wounded at this stage. From the last game against Port Adelaide, they would like to make a mark. And on the other hand, I would say that Adelaide Crows are picking at the right time. So this would be a very good game for them to show that to others as well, that they are real deal, even if it comes to the finals or so as well. So they should come in hard at Geelong, although I believe Geelong at home would be too strong for them.
Yeah, the game between Essendon and the Giants, I'm going to be watching that one. I think that one's going to be very intriguing because, like you said, GWS, they're a fantastic team. They do very well. They're a team that are used to playing away from home and doing well. But I think that Essendon, they really, really need to win this game. They really need to prove a point. And if they're going to have any chance of making it into the top 8, firstly, they have to beat teams that are in the top 8. They have to beat teams that are better than them, like GWS. And they have to start winning games from here on in because we're near the middle of the season. Now we're starting to see who's going to sink and who's going to swim. And if Essendon are going to swim, they need to win this game. And there is a little bit of heat on John Worsfold, probably not so much as Alan Richardson, and rightfully so in my opinion. But I think that they really, really need to win this one. So if they're going to be taken seriously, they have to win. And for that, I'm going to pick Essendon. And also you do have good players like Dyson Heppel and McDonald Tipungwuti is a fantastic player. So I'm going to pick Essendon for that one. Geelong versus Adelaide. It's hard to go against Geelong at home. I mean, really, Geelong, they're a fantastic side. Wherever they play, I think they'll bounce back. They should win at home. And I think they'll win pretty comfortably, even though I think Adelaide are a good team. But Geelong should win.
Which brings us to the 4 games on Saturday. The Hawks take on West Coast at the MCG. Sydney Swans play the Gold Coast Suns at the SCG. The Magpies are back for the second time in 2 weeks at Marvel Stadium to play North Melbourne. And Port Adelaide at home take on the Western Bulldogs. Your thoughts, Gabriel?
Well, we were talking about Hawthorn quite a lot, actually. Like Hawthorn this episode, and I'm still not convinced. I still don't think that they're going to be playing finals this season. I still feel like there's some sort of ill discipline, a lack of focus, whatever you like to call it, but I'm just not convinced with Hawthorn, and I don't think that they're going to beat West Coast. West Coast are just, they're sort of, I won't say they're sailing, but they're doing enough. They're playing well, they're winning points where they can, they're winning games at home, they're winning a few away, they're doing well, they're sitting comfortably in fourth position. So I think that West Coast are going to have that advantage against Hawthorn. I think West Coast are going to win. I don't see Hawthorn really troubling them at all. I think that they're just completely lopsided. And Sydney versus Gold Coast, Sydney. Sydney for me. And Gold Coast, another team that have been really disappointing because we were expecting a lot more from them, especially at the beginning of the year where they just improved out of sight and we were like, wow, Gold Coast have been doing really, really well. But since then, they've just gone downhill and they should have beaten St Kilda. That was a really bad result. So Sydney should win. Collingwood versus North Melbourne, I think Collingwood should win that game. North Melbourne aren't as strong as Collingwood. And Port Adelaide against the Bulldogs at home, Port Adelaide should win that one.
Yeah, and I want Hawthorn to win at MCG because it's their home ground, but I don't see them winning. I don't know where they will come because Natnu is back and Eagles don't feel alien at MCG. Yeah. So they beat Collingwood there this year as well. So I think it's going to be easy one for Eagles. And Sydney versus Gold Coast, the only thing that can topple Sydney is at SCG. And I believe I've got this feeling that Gold Coast will going to come in hard and from the history as well. And then also, I believe, just because Gold Coast wants to prove a point as well. And Magpies and Roos, that's easy one for me. Magpies. And the Port Adelaide and Bulldogs, I'm not going to bother. Although it's my team, but it's Port Adelaide.
Thank you. Sunday, we'll see the Saints tackle Richmond at Marvel Stadium. Brisbane Lions at home host the Melbourne Demons, and Fremantle in Perth play the Carlton Blues. Javier.
Well, I believe St Kilda versus Richmond. St Kilda needs to prove a point, but I would still say that Richmond would be better than them. So it's going to be Richmond for me at this stage. And Melbourne, if it's Gabba, I'm just going to go for Brisbane. Although there were good signs from Melbourne, but I believe Brisbane would be too strong over there. And from Perth, because it's in Perth, and it's Fremantle against Carlton, easy picking Fremantle.
Yeah, absolutely. Fremantle should win comfortably. Brisbane, I think that they would be too strong for Melbourne. They play very well, even away from home. They played really, really well against St Kilda. So I think Brisbane, St Kilda versus Richmond, St Kilda, this is the Maddies match, which is now a firm fixture in the calendar, of the footy calendar. They have to do good here. I mean, they may not necessarily win, but they have to be, they have to have a respectable outing. Because if they lose badly on a night like that against Richmond, you may as well maybe find Alan Richardson at Centrelink somewhere because there's no coming back from that.
Yeah.
Looks like a great week of footy ahead. Thanks you, and that's all we have time for this week. You've been watching and listening to the Multicultural AFL Footy Show all around Australia on the Community Radio Network, Community TV and on Aurora TV Foxtel. We are also online through the NEMBC's AFL Footy website. See you next week. I am Vanessa Gatica.
I'm Harbeez Singh.
I'm Gabriel D'Angelo.
And thank you for watching.